So, welcome to the 7th tutorial session of problem solving through programming in C. This is a SWAYAM course floated by Professor Anupam Basu from Department of CSE, IIT Kharagpur, and I am Siddhant. I am the TA who is in charge of handling this tutorial session where we will discuss the week's concepts and we will discuss a few questions as well, which will help you out with the assignment problems and the final exam. So in this session we will discuss the concepts and the problems related to week 7 lectures, which is consisting of linear search, 2D arrays and strings and character arrays. So we will discuss a few questions related to each of those concepts. So in the previous session we looked into 1D arrays, and this time we are going to look into 2D arrays, and there's a different kind of array called character arrays and also strings. So how are both the character arrays and strings different? We'll see that as well. But first we will look at this question. The question asks that in C, what is the placement? Like the placement of the elements of a 2D array is in row-wise manner, in column-wise manner, diagonal-wise, top to bottom-wise. So feel free to answer, unmute and answer, or you can also write the answer in the chat box. Alright, so the placement of elements of a 2D array is row-wise. What does that mean? Say I have an array which is something like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So basically I have 3 rows. This is row 1 or row 0, 1 and 2. So this is the row indices, and 0, 1, 2, these are the column indices, right? So three rows and 3 columns. So how this will be stored in the RAM is something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes.
Sir, last class I didn't join, sir. Which topic you take, sir, last class?
In the last class, 1D arrays were covered. You can refer the recording of the previous class to just catch up on the concepts. Yeah. So what does it mean that the placement of elements of a 2D array is row wise in C? That if your array is something like this, it's a 2D array with 3 rows and 3 columns. So the array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So in the memory it will be stored in this.
Last class you take the topic one dimension array, sir. Last class.
Yes, mostly it was 1D arrays.
Okay, sir. Last month which topic you take, sir? Last month.
Sorry.
August.
So basically it was I teach according to the weeks. So in the previous class I taught the concepts, the questions related to week 6 lectures, and the one before that week 5 lectures, week 4 lectures, and so on. So it's week wise. So you can just check the course catalog, and according to the lectures, I have discussed questions of similar concepts in the class as well. Yeah. Okay. So in the memory it will be stored in row major format or row wise format. That means that all the elements of the first row will be saved first, and then followed by the second row, followed by the third row. So that means it will be saved in the memory in this form: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is how it will be stored in the memory. So that is why the C is a row major. So basically 2D arrays are stored in a row major form in C and C++. So in There are other languages such as Python, which allow for, or Fortran, let's say Fortran. Fortran saves the data in column-wise form, and languages like Python allow the saving to occur either in row major or in column major form. So there are options. So with different programming languages have different specifications with storing of the elements of a 2D array. For C, it is a row major form that is used. Okay. All right. So let us look at another theoretical question. So say you want to pass an array as an argument to a function. So how would you really do that? I mean, what would you pass to the function in that case?
First address of the
Option C,
array.
first
Right.
element of the array,
Uh,
address of the first element of the array.
Correct. So you will pass the address to the first element of the array. Say you have an array, say A, for I'll take an array, say of size 10. Okay, so 10 elements. Now I will pass only the, so let's say there are some elements 1 2 3 4, something like that. So this is the first element. I will pass only the address of this element. So if I have the address of the first element of the array, I can access all the elements of the array, right? So if I know that where this first element is located, I can always access the value stored at that address, and then I can do the address plus 1 and go to the next element, access that the value of that address as well. And this is made possible, why? Because array is a group of contiguous memory locations. So in memory, the values are stored next to each other. So consecutive memory locations will be allocated to the array when it is defined. So because of such a definition or such a memory allocation for the array, you only need to send the first element, the address of the first element of the array, so that we can access the address of all the remaining elements, and of course the value stored in those addresses. Okay, so you need to pass only the address of the first element of the array. All right, so let's look at few simple questions. So we have defined here a 2D array. As you can see, we have defined a 2D array of 2 rows and 3 columns. So this is, we write the row in row size first, and then we write the column size. So this array should have a total of 6 elements, right? Now okay, so here you have the row size and the column size, that is 2 and 3 respectively. So you have defined a 2D array and you are initializing it to some values. Now you have a for loop of I which goes from 0 to less than 2, that means in increment of 1, that means it will go over 0 and 1, and then inside that you have a nested for loop j which will go from 2 up till 0 with a negative with a decrement of 1 with each iteration, and you are printing the value which is stored in the the I comma j index of the array. So what do you think would be the output of this? Now there will be multiple outputs because you are printing over a nested for loop, so and I and j are continually varying and you are printing them continuously, so it will be like at least a few numbers will be printed. But the question here asks in what order they will be printed. Like that is basically when the question is asking what is the output, it wants to see what is the order that they will be printed in. Okay, so first of all, let's see what are the elements, which are the elements at what locations of this array. So we have an array which is of size 2 cross 3. That means it will have 2 rows and 3 columns. So, and we have so total of 6 values, but we have initialized only 4 values. So what happens when we initialize lesser number of values here? There will be, the rest of the values will be filled with simply zeros. Okay, so how it is arranged? This is how you will have your values stored, because you have not specified what you have given, right? Like which corresponds to first column and which corresponds to the first row and which corresponds to the second row. You have not really specified here. You have just given all the values one by one. So it is assuming that you have entered the values in a row major format. So it will just arrange it in a row major format. So it start arranging from the first row. It puts 1, 2, 3, then 4, and because there are no other values that you have initialized, it will simply have 0 on the remaining 2 values. Now you go I equals 0. I is the index which is when you're printing, you can see I is the row index and j is the column index. Okay, so I basically will go like this and j will basically go like this, something like this, or the other way you could say. So j will basically go like this, because j goes from 2 up till 0, right? So it goes from the third column up till the first column, while I goes from the 0th row to the first row. So let's say what will happen, I equals 0, j equals 2. So what will be printed? So this will print I equals 0 and j equals 2. So the value is 3, right? Then what is the value which will be printed next? I equals 0, j equals 1. So 2, right? Then I equals 0, j equals 0. That is our first element, which is 1. Similarly, next you will have I equals 1, j equals 2, which is 0. I equals 1, j equals 1, which is again 0. Then I equals 1, j equals 0, that is 4. So I1 means index according to the indices. This is the second row, and j0 means the first column. So 4. So here the output will be 3, 2, 1, 0, 0, 4. So this is what is going to be printed, because you can see you are printing only %d, no space, nothing. So it will just print the numbers next to each other. So the output from this code will be 3, 2, 1, 0, 0, 4. Is it clear?
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, will the array be initialized like the question next to this?
Yes. You can initialize the 2D array both in this form and in this form. So the difference is that if you initialize only with the single curly braces without pointing out that what is exactly your what constitutes your first row and second row and so on, if you don't specify that, then it will automatically divide it in row measure form. So here it considers that you have initialized the array in row measure form, so it will take whatever number of elements. So the first 3 elements it will put into the first row, and then only one element is there, so it will put it in the first column of the second row, and the rest of the elements it will just set to 0. If there was another row here, then that would have also been 0, 0, 0. Okay, so
Okay, sir.
yeah, but if you specify it like this, where you have like 3 rows, so here that means we have 3 rows and 4 columns, right? So this has 3 rows and 4 columns, so basically 12 values should be there, and we are initializing 12 values here, and we are specifying that this is the first row, this is the second row, and this is the third row. We are specifying by this double curly braces. So we are specifying each of the rows by using this extra pair of curly braces. Okay, so in this case it will consider an array like this: 5, 6, 8, 2, 4 5 3 7 1 10 13 15. So this will be your array in this case, the one that you have initialized. Okay, is it clear how these are the two different ways of initialization? Are both of them clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So so here you are just printing the value at index row index 2 and column index 3. So what that is, let's see. So this is the row index and this is the column index. So this is index 0 1 2 3 0 1 2. So this is column index, sorry, so this is the row index of 2, that means the last row, and then this is the column index of 3, that means the last column. So the last row, last column, which is the value is 15. So this program will print 15 as the output. Okay, is that are both of these questions clear?
Yes. Yes.
Sir, once please explain again, sir.
Okay, so basically here we are defining a 2D array called DISP with 3 rows and 4 columns. So the first index, the first pair of square braces, whatever you write is the basically the number of rows, and then the number of columns in the second pair of square braces. And here you are initializing some values to it. So you are using a outer pair of curly braces, and within that you are using an inner pair of curly braces. So every inner pair of curly braces is designated to one of the rows. So the first row, here the way I have initialized it, I'm basically saying that this 5 6 8 2 is the first row, 4 5 3 7 is the second row, and 1 10 13 and 15 is the third row. So this is my matrix or my array, my 2D array now. So 5 6 8 2 is the first row, 4 5 3 7 second row, and 1 10 13 15 is the third row. Now I am printing the value at the index row index 2 and column index 3. So the first is the row index and then is the column index. Now what is my row index? The first row is index 0, second row is index 1, and third row is index 2. So here you have writing index 2, row index 2, that means the last row. Now column index of 3 means the column index also starts from 0. So as in the case with 1D arrays also, the index always starts from 0. So here the column index starts from 0 0 1 2 3 for the 4 columns. Now you are saying that column index 3, that means it's the last column of the array. So the last row and last column, the value is 15, right? So that is what will be printed here. Is that clear now? Okay. So let's move on to the next question. So here you have a array of 20 elements. So it's a 1D array now, and it has 20 elements, but you are initializing only 6 elements. So what will happen? The rest of the elements will be initialized to 0, right? And you are printing something which is 3 of A. So what will be printed here?
Error.
Okay, why do you think it will be an error? So basically this array is something like, so what is the array A, which is 10 20 30 40 50 60 and then 0 0 0 0 the rest of the way. Okay, so it's like something like this. So it consists of 20 elements total. Now you're trying to print this 3 of A. What exactly this means? So how does the compiler see this? So the compiler sees it as this. Okay, now if I say what is A, like, let me not write A like this. So what is, if I say only A, that actually refers to the address of the first element of the array. Okay, so if I say A, that is the address of the first element of the array. Now star of A refers to star of A means I am saying the value of the first element of array. Okay, now what does A plus 3 mean? So basically A is pointing to the first element. So when I say just A, it is the address of the first element of the array. So it is pointing to the first element. Now A plus 3, what does that mean? So this is A plus 1, A plus 2, A plus 3. So basically I am pointing now to the fourth element of the array. When I say A plus 3, so when I say A plus 3, I am basically saying this is the address of the fourth element of the array. Okay, now when I am saying star of A plus 3 or star of 3 plus A, I am saying is the value of the fourth element of the array. So here, even if you write it as A of 3, it will still be considered as star of A plus 3. If you write it as 3 of A, it will still be considered as star of 3 plus A, which is basically the same thing, which is same as star of A plus 3. So this is a legal way of writing things. Okay, and it basically means the same as A of 3. Okay, so here so A of 3, what is A of 3? A of 3 is 40. So you will have 40 being printed here. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So this what does this star do, and like how exactly it is happening? This star, this referencing, this dereferencing operator. How does this star is a dereferencing operator? How does it work? We'll look at it again when we cover pointers in a later week. So for now, you just can remember that when you write star of A, star of the array array variable, basically you are saying it's the value. Now if you are writing just the array variable without any brackets, remember, without any brackets, you are basically referring to the address. Okay. All right, now let's look at the next question. So here you are defining a 2D array of size 3 cross 3 and trying to initialize it, and then trying to print some value of the array. So what should be the output of this code?
7.
Okay, why do you think it should be 1?
No.
7.
Okay, so I'll tell you here the answer will be compilation error. Why? Because the initialization can only be done where you are declaring the array. So initialization can be done only on the declaration, only on the like declaration step. So where you are declaring the array, that you have defined the array for the first time, that you are writing int array 3 of 3. Okay, only in that step you can do the initialization. You cannot do the initialization later on in a different step. Okay, in static initialization. So this is a illegal format. Okay, this is a illegal syntax, so it will be actually a compilation error. But if you had initialized it here in the first line itself with the int thing, then 2 of 0 would have given you what? The third row and the first column, which would have been 7. So if the initialization had been done in the first line itself with the declaration step, then the answer would have been 7. But here the initialization has been done in a separate line, or they have tried to do the initialization in a separate line after the declaration has taken place. So this is illegal syntax, which will throw a compilation error. Okay, so this is only specific to arrays. Okay, specific to arrays, because you can always initialize variables, just simple variables, later on, but arrays cannot be initialized later on like this. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
if the number of columns are not equal in each row, will it return a compilation?
So basically you're saying that if you write something like this, ARY33 1, 2 4, 5, 6 7, 8, 9, something like this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. If you do this, then I think it should give you a compilation error, but I'm not sure. You can try it out. Maybe it will put a 0 here because you are not providing. If it is an int, then probably it might put a 0 here and not give a compilation error, but I'm not very sure. So just check, just run a quick code and check that out. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Alright, now we go into strings. So strings are special arrays which contain character values, a combination, like a group of character values. So for using strings and any kind of string functions, you need to have the string.h header file included initially as a preprocessor directive, along with the stdio.h, which we usually do. We need also string.h. Okay, now here in the first question, what does it say? So we are defining a string with the value welcome, and another string with the value welcome also, and then we are writing a if statement. If p equals q, we are printing something. So what will be the output of this?
Option A, compilation error.
Why compilation error?
So because strcmp is not used.
Okay, but when you are trying to compare p and q, what are p and q? That is the question here. Like, what exactly is p and
They are the
q?
address.
Address of what?
Address of the
Character
first element
array?
of the array.
Yes, address of the first element of the string. So basically it is the address of the w, and here q is the address of the w, and both are stored in different places, right? So the addresses are not the same. You have two strings, you have defined two strings, and you are comparing the addresses of the first element of the array. You are not comparing the array itself. Like someone said, you need to use strcmp, which is a string compare function, to compare strings. So this has to be used to compare strings, but you are not using that, so you are just comparing p and q directly. So what does that do? You are basically comparing the addresses of the first element of each of the strings. Okay, so basically what kind of comparison is happening? Comparing address of first element of each string. So because of that, the addresses are definitely not the same. So because they are two different strings, so definitely they are stored in two different places, so the addresses will never be the same. So and you're comparing the addresses, so this statement would be false, like p is not equal to q, so this would be false, so there will be no output here.
Sir,
Yes.
once again explain strings, sir. I can't able to understand.
So basically you are defining this p, which is a string, which is basically a combination of character values. Okay, so every letter of this string is a character. So W E L C O M E. So think of it as a string array, as a character array, but a bit more. So basically, how this p is stored is something like this: W E L C O M E, and then a null character. So every string ends with a null character. Okay. Now this is your string p, and similarly you have defined a string q, which is again the same string. So when you say just p or just q, what does that mean? So if you say just p, that means it's the address of the first element. So for any array, this is not just for the string array, but for any array. So this is the address of the first element of the string. Now this, what is the q? Q is also the address of the first element of the string. So the values of the first element of each of the strings is the same because it's the small w, right? But the addresses are definitely different because these are two different strings which has been defined, so they have been allocated different spaces in the memory. So definitely the addresses of the first element, addresses of all the elements are different. Okay, so if I compare the address of the first element of the first string to the address of the first element of the second string, definitely the addresses are different. So that is what I am doing when I am writing here if p equals q. When I am writing this condition, basically I am comparing the addresses of the elements, and the addresses are definitely different because these are two different strings. So in that case the condition is not satisfied. So condition is not satisfied, so it will not print anything, and it will just go to the next line, which is return. So there will be no output from this code. Is that clear? Yeah. Okay. Now we look at what will be the output of the following program. Okay, we have defined a string, another string, which is this particular like array/0 string. Okay, now we are trying to print the string. So %s is the format specifier for string, for printing string. This is the format specifier or the placeholder for printing string. Okay, string variables. So here str is a string variable. So this is how you define a string variable. You write char and then the variable name, empty braces, empty square braces, and then you just write it in double quotes. Okay, strings are always in double quotes. Okay, so now the %s is the format specifier for printing string variables. Okay, now you are trying to print the string. So what exactly will be printed here?
Option A. Option A.
Right.
Array.
Right, because so here the important thing to note is printing always terminates on encountering this character, which is called a null character, the null character. Okay, so printing always terminates on encountering this null character. So here you have put a null character in between, so only the part before that will be printed. So earlier I said when I wrote this welcome string as how it will be stored, I wrote a null character at the end. So every string, if you define it in this form, so every string will have a null character automatically added at the end of the string. Okay, so that means when you are printing the string, it will print up till before the null character. That means if I try to print this welcome, it will print up till E. It will not print the null character. Once it encounters the null character, the printing will stop. So similarly here, you have put a null character in the string itself. So on encountering the null character, the printing will stop there itself. It will not proceed any further. So it will print only this part before the null character, which is array. And here you will have the output of the program to be array. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So now let's look at the. Oh, this question is repeated. We can just ignore this. Okay. So you can look at this this question, which is we are defining a string. We are saying the size of the string, or rather the capacity of the string is 20 characters. Okay. So this is the capacity of the string, and we are setting some value here called programming, like the word programming, and similarly we are defining another string and we are saving the value, which is the word language. Now we are trying to print it, so we are using some function here. This is called string copy, strcpy, string copy function, and this is the string concatenation function. I'll write the syntax for each of them. So how it works is something like this: destination string, source string. Okay. Similarly, strcpy also works in a similar manner: destination string, source string. So this is the syntax for both strcat and strcpy functions. So these are inbuilt library functions which is available in string.h. Okay. So what do you mean by source string and destination string? So let's say I have a value s1, which is app. Okay. And I have another string s2, which is like Java. Okay. Now I am writing strcat s1 comma s2. So what this means is s2 is the source string and s1 is the destination string, and concatenation means just adding it up. Okay. So what will happen from here is that s1 will become app Java. Okay. So Java will be concatenated to the end of s1. So s1 ends at this p. So after that the Java will be concatenated to it and it will be stored in s1 itself. So s2 will not undergo any change. Only the value in s2 will come and get concatenated to s1. So this is how strcat works. Similarly, if I do strcpy s1 comma s2, so what that does with this values, I directly do this, then what happens is the value of s2 gets copied to s1. That is why s1 is the destination string. So now s1 will also become Java. Okay. So s1, the value of s2 will get copied to s1. The source string is s2, the destination string is s1. So the value will come from the source string to the destination string and it will just copy it. So the value of s2 will get copied to s1. So s1 will become Java. So this is how the strcat and strcpy function works, the string concatenation and string copy function. So now we are doing a concatenation of str1 and str2, and then we are copying that value to str2. So what will be printed here?
Option C, programming language.
Right. So here we are copying. So first we are concatenating the string. So when we do strcat str1 comma str2, so what happens here? Str1 becomes this entire thing, programming language, right? So because the value of str2 gets appended to the end of str1. Okay, now after that we copy this value to str2. So str2 basically becomes this value, right? And that is what is being printed here. So str2 is the destination string, and that is what is the output from this strcpy. So that is what will be printed here, and basically that's option C, which is programming language. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, this is somehow this question. Anyway, all right. So we have what we have here is we have defined a null string, right? A null string, because why I say null string, because you have defined nothing. So there is no character in between the double inverted comma. So basically it's a null string, so it will have only one character. So if I write a, it will have only this null character, okay, and nothing else. Only the null character will be there. Okay, so you're defining that string, and you are basically printing %s of a, and you're putting it in a if condition. So remember what was the output from a from a printf statement? It is the number of characters that is being printed. Okay, that is what the printf gives. Earlier I discussed a question with switch statement, where in the switch we had used the printf, and there the number of characters will be passed to the switch. So similarly here also, the number of characters that the printf statement prints is going to be passed on to the if statement. So what will be the output of this code?
The string is not empty.
Right. So here, like I said, it's a null string. That means it has only a null character, and as you know, null character is not printed. The printing stops before the null character. That means this no character is printed. Okay, that means if you are getting a if of 0 here, right? First of all, nothing is getting printed, so no output from there, and then 0 is being passed to the if statement because no character is printed. Now if of 0 means it's a false condition. If it's a false condition, then it will go to the else part. Else part, string is not empty. So string is not empty will be printed. Is it clear? Okay, so yeah, okay, so let us first discuss this one. Yes, recorded videos are available on YouTube itself. Maybe someone can put a link to the YouTube video on in the chat box, so that everyone can access. So otherwise you can find it on the SWAYAM course page itself. It will be under the heading of a problem solving session, and there you go to a spreadsheet. There the link for a spreadsheet will be there. You open that, you will get the links. Okay, so let's look at the question on the right hand side first. You have a string variable. So this is the question which differentiates between a string and a character array. So what is a string and what is a character array? How are they different? Okay, now so basically str1 is a string. It contains the sentence which is live and let live with spaces and so on, and str2 is a character array. So this is a string. Okay, why a string? Because it's defined with the double inverted commas. That is why it's a string. Okay, the double inverted commas designate that it's a string. Now you are, if you are defining the individual characters one by one, okay, then it's a character array. So this is a character array. Okay, so str2 is a character array, str1 is a string. Now you're calculating some size of str1 divided by size of str1 of 0, and size of str2 divided by size of str2 of 0. So what does size of do? Just to make you remember, it returns the number of bytes occupied by the variable. Okay, so size of is the operator which returns the number of bytes which is occupied by that variable. So here size of str1, so what will be the output here? So we are printing n1 and n2, so what will be the output? Option A. Why do you think it will be option A?
Because 18 by 1 gives 18 and
Okay, but why are there are 17 characters here, right? Like live 4 characters, 4 6, so 8 plus 6 14, 3 spaces 17, so 17 characters here, right? So how come size of str1 is 18?
Including the null character.
Exactly. So like I said in the previous question, every string ends with a null character, but character array does not. So character array, we have not specified any null character here, right? So there is no null character in the character array here, but in the string there is a null character which is automatically added to the end of the string, to the string. Okay, so there are actually 18 characters here, not 17. Even if you can count them and it will come out to be 17, because it has been defined as a string, there will be a null character at the end which adds up and makes it 18 characters. So n1 will basically be 18 by 1, because size of one character is 1 byte, and n2 will be 17 by 1. So hence the answer will be option A. Okay, that is the difference between string and character array. So in a character array, it's not necessary, unless you specify a null character, it will not end with a null character. Okay, but in a string you write the same thing, but in double inverted comma, it will automatically take a null character at the end of the array. Okay, so that is the difference between a string and a character array. Okay, I hope that's clear. I think a similar question is there in your assignment. You can have a look at it now. Okay, now let's discuss this question. It's about the function strcmp. So a string compare function. So it's called string compare. Okay, now this function is also defined in string.h header file. Okay, the string.h header file. So you need to include the string.h for using this strcmp function. So I have only written this code snippet, no main function, nothing. While writing this code, you have to include string.h, stdio.h and the main function. Okay, so what we say here, we say that str1 is a string which is a, b, c, d all small. str2 is another string which is a, b, capital C, small d. The others are small, just C is capital. str4 is small a, small b. str5 is capital C, capital D. Okay, so this is our 4 strings. We have defined 4 strings. Now the next thing what we do is we have now we are comparing string str1 and str2. Okay, so we are defining and we are comparing str1 and str2. So basically these 2 strings. So and then we are printing this. So strcmp always returns an integer value. Okay, so strcmp, the string compare function, it will return an integer value. So And what is the integer? So strcmp, how we see it, if the return is 0, that means strings are the same. Okay, if non-zero, then strings are different. That is what it will give you. But what exactly will be the output when you are comparing this str1 and str2? What will be the value that will be returned by strcmp, which is string compare? So what do you think?
The difference in ASCII value of the character.
Exactly. So here you have, this is the first string str1, and this is, sorry, this is capital str2. Okay, now I will just simply do a subtraction. Okay, how will I do a subtraction? I will compare the ASCII values of the characters instead of the characters themselves. So every character has a ASCII value, right? So small a has a ASCII value of 97. Similarly, small c will have a ASCII value of 99. Capital A will have a ASCII value of 65. Capital C will have a ASCII value of 67, right? So I'll just compare the ASCII values. So A will get crossed out with A. I mean, they are the same ASCII value, so no change. B will also have no change because because they have the same ASCII values. They are the same characters, so same ASCII values. Now, when I do the ASCII value of C minus capital C, what happens? So small c is 99, capital C is 67. So you get 32, right? So that will be the first R. And what does that say about your string? That lexicographically your string 1 is situated after string 2. So in dictionary order, if you follow dictionary order, lexicographical order, so it's called lexicographical order. So in lexicographical order, the string 1 is situated after string 2. So that is what it is. This is basically saying. So you'll get a positive output of 32. Okay, because you're basically subtracting str1 minus str2. So on this 99 minus 67. Okay, similarly, what happens in the next line? Let us see. So we are doing a string concatenation first. When we do the string concatenation, str4, what will the value of str4 become? Can anyone tell me?
A, B, capital C, capital D.
Yes. So A, B, capital C, capital D. Now you are comparing this A, B, capital C, capital D with string 2. So string 2 is A, B, capital C, small d, right? So similarly, we'll again repeat the procedure. Capital C, capital D minus A, B, capital C, small d. So first value is the same, second value is the same, third value is also the same. Fourth value, what is the fourth value? So capital D. So capital D is, the ASCII value of capital D is 68. ASCII value of small d is 100. So basically you're doing 68 minus 100, which is minus 32. What does that mean? So that means that the string which is formed, the str4, which is A, B, capital C, capital D, is situated before A, B, capital C, small d in lexicographical order. Okay, so the output from here will be minus 32. So here option E is the answer, 32 comma minus 32. Is it clear how this string compare function, what value does the string compare function return?
Can you please explain what is the lexicographical order?
So it's just a name basically. It's how it compares is basically this. It's like lexicographical order means it's a dictionary order. So capital letters will come first, then small letters, and so on. So the comparison, however, is exactly in this form, the way I'm explaining. So it will basically start subtracting. So and the subtraction will occur only till the first difference. Okay, so let me think what could be an example for that. Capital C, capital D. Okay, so if I compare A, B, capital C, capital D, and A, B, small c, A, B, small c, small d. Okay, if I compare this, then first two are the same. Okay, now the third is like 67 minus 99, so it will not even go to the fourth one, it will just check the third one, it will return you a value of minus 32. Okay, the first difference wherever it occurs, that is itself, it will just give you this value. So you don't need to exactly understand the lexicographical order, you need to understand how the comparison here is taking place, the comparison between the strings. So unless the values or the characters are exactly the same, even like considering the uppercase and lowercase, they're exactly the same, there is no issue. Now the first difference that occurs, you just subtract the ASCII value of that particular character from the first string and the ASCII value of that particular character of the second string. So just subtract that, and whatever will be the result from there, that is what the string compare function will return to you, that value. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. And so you said that a string value will come first. Means if the answer is negative, the value that is subtracted will come first.
Yes, if it is negative, that means this one occurs first. This occurs first because it is negative. So you are comparing this to minus. We are doing a subtraction, right? So and you are getting a negative value. That means this first thing, the first string is occurring first, and then the second string is occurring. Only then we will get a negative value.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and here we got a positive value. That means the second string is occurring first, and then the first string. So here this occurs first, like in dictionary order, this will come first, and then the first string will come. Okay, so
Okay, sir.
yeah. Okay, all right, now the next question. So what would you place in what would you put in the place of this star 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 to print only 2? So we need to print only this part of the string. So the string is 22 and we need to print only 2. So what do you need to put here? So remember that ARR, writing ARR means you are referring to the address of the first element. So according to that,
Option C.
Option C, sir.
okay,
Option C.
right. So basically what you're doing here is you're at ARR, so it's something like this. Right, so this is the string written in a blown up form. So this is ARR. Now this is ARR plus 1, ARR plus 2, ARR plus 3, ARR plus 4, ARR plus 5, ARR plus 6. So here you need to print only 2. So if you write ARR here, it will print starting from there itself. So it will print entirely 22. Okay, now you want only 2 to be printed, so you need to move the array to the seventh element, that is ARR plus 6. So if you point it here, then it will start printing from here. So it will print T, W and O, and it will terminate at the null character. So ARR plus 6. Okay,
Sir, can you please explain it again?
Okay, so here we have a string which is 22. If I write it in a like character by character form, like a blown out form, so this is how it will look like, right? TWENTY TO then a null character. So this is our string. Now when we say just ARR, that means we are pointing to the address of the first element of the array. Okay, and if we write ARR here with %s, it will start printing from this particular element onwards. Okay, that is this capital T, the first capital T. So it will print the entire 22 if we just write ARR. Now if I write ARR plus 1, that means it will start printing from the next address, that is the second element of the array, that is it will print WENTY2. Okay, similarly if I print at if I write ARR plus 5, it will start printing from this Y. So it will print Y, capital T, W and O. Okay, so if I want to get only 2, that is TWO, so I have to start the printing from this capital T, the second capital T. And where does that occur? That occurs at ARR plus 6. That means it's the 7th element of the array, which is at the index 6. So it's at the index 6, or in other words, it's the 7th element of the array. So if I write ARR plus 6, it will print only the part after this, that is capital T, W and O. So here I write ARR plus 6. Is that clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, now let's look at this question, which is so here basically you have to think about formal parameters versus actual parameters. So this, on the surface, it seems like a string question, but it's actually a question about formal parameters versus actual parameters. So read the question carefully and try to answer it.
Option C.
No, answer is not option C.
Option A.
Okay, and why is that?
Because it does not change with string str1 and str2.
Okay,
The change occurs only inside the function, not outside.
yes, exactly. So for explaining this question, to simplify things, I will just rename this variable as str3 and str4. Okay, str3, no, str3, str4, str4. Okay, just for explaining this question, because str1 and str2 have been defined in main, and we are using the same some variable with the same name. So basically these are the formal parameters. Okay, and these are the actual parameters. Okay, so formal parameters are actually separate from actual parameters. So whatever names, even if we have the variables with the same names here, str1 and str2, it has no relation to str1 and str2 in the main function. Okay, it's not the same variable. Even if it has the same name, it's not the same variable. For that reason, I have just changed the name from str1 to str3 and str2 to str4. Now let us look at the question again. So here we have str1, str1 which is SWAYAM, and str2 which is 2022. Okay, now we are using a swap function where we are passing str1 and str2, which is what? Which is the address of the first element of the string 1, str1 and str2. Okay, so it's the address of the first element of the array. So basically I'm saying address of this capital S that is str1. I am just writing it like this, but this will not give you, like, just for explaining, I am just writing it in this form, but it's not actually written like this. Okay, so when you write str1, basically that refers to the address of this capital S, and str2, it refers to the address of the 2, okay, the first element of each of them. So now I write the swap. So what happens in this swap function? So now this address is copied to str3. The address is copied, okay, remember the address is copied. So this str2 address is copied to str4. Okay, so now str3 and str4 carry the addresses of the first element and the first element of each of the arrays respectively, str1 and str2 respectively. Now what we do here, we just swap the addresses of the str3 and str4. So we take a temp, a pointer variable here called temp. We save it to the address str3, and we save the address str4 to str3 and str4 to temp. So basically we are swapping. We are swapping what? We are swapping the addresses str3 and str4, which basically does nothing, because str3 and str4, if you had changed the values at str3 and str4, it would have affected str1 and 2, because in the memory somewhere you have this okay, this is stored somewhere in the memory. Okay, similarly you have 2022. Okay, this is also there in the memory. Now str1 pointed to this, str2 pointed to this. Now I said that I am copying the value, str3 is also going to point to this, str4 is going to point to this. Okay, that is what I did when I passed it to the swap function. Okay, now I am swapping the addresses itself. Okay, what I am doing inside the void function is that I am saying that now, okay, this is not the case anymore. This is not the case anymore. Now str, and this is also not the case anymore. I am swapping the values. So now str3 point to this and str4 point to this. Okay, but even if str3 and str4 point to this, I'm not really, that does not really affect the main function, whatever happening is in the main function, because I just made a copy of the address. This str4 was a copy of str2, and the str3 was a copy of str1. So any change made to str3, the address str stored in str3 will not really change any change with str1. If you had changed the value which was associated with str3, say you had changed this character to something else, the value you had changed to something else, then it would have caused a change, because str3 and str1 shared the same address. But you are not doing that. You are just swapping the address which is str3 and str4, and that does not even get that is not being even returned to the main function. You are doing some swapping, but if you had printed, say if you had done a printf here with %s, say str4. Okay, so if you had done this, then yes, then you would have got str4 points to SWAYAM now, so you would have got SWAYAM as the output. Okay, but you are not really doing that. You are printing it back in the main function, and str1 and str2 are still unaffected by it, by whatever you have done in the swap function. So when you print this, str1 still is pointing to SWAYAM and str2 is still pointing to 2022. Okay, so because of that, you will get the answer to be str1 is SWAYAM, str2 is 2022. Is it clear? So is it clear how this the address swapping is occurring and there is no real change occurring to the arrays themselves, to the strings themselves? Is it clear, this question? This probably,
Yes, sir.
among all the questions, this is the toughest one that I have seen so far, especially when you see that this it's not written as str3 and 4, rather it's written as str1 and 2. So that creates an extra confusion that whether this str1 and this str1 are the same. It's not the same. So the str1 in swap, although they point to the same memory location, this str1 in swap is a copy of this str1 in main. It's not the same thing. Okay, so that creates additional confusion. So this is probably the toughest question I've seen so far among all the string related questions. Okay, so if this is clear, then we can just look at the last question, I guess. Yeah, this is the last question I have, the last two questions. Okay, so this is more of a theory question. So here I am asking the user to enter a string twice. So I have str1 and str2 with a capacity of 20 characters each, and I am inputting once using scanf function and one using getS function. So what I am inputting, what is the user inputting? Programming in C, okay, with this blank spaces as well. So is there any difference between the, not the output, or rather the value? Is there any difference between the value of str1 and str2?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what is the difference?
So the space will not be printed in str1, but the space will also get printed in space will get printed in str2 as it is string, but scanf will take as a character.
So basically, okay, not exactly, or rather your explanation was a bit different. So basically, if I input the same string twice through scanf and getS, str1 will basically be this programming, str2 will be programming in C. Okay, so this is the difference between scanf and getS. So in scanf, the input will terminate at the first space that you give. The first space, whenever you give, till then it will consider it as an input. So the first space here comes after programming. So only this programming part will be considered as the input with the scanf. But with the getS, the space will also be considered. So the entire thing will be considered in getS. So if you want to enter a sentence, if you want to input a sentence, okay, you have to use getS. Only then you can input a sentence, because it will have blank spaces in between. So you need to use getS. So if you use scanf, only the first word will be taken as input. So this is only used for inputting a word. But if you want to input a sentence, then you have to use getS. Okay, but now if you run any function with getS in any version of C11 and above, okay, if you run any program with getS C11 and above, it will show that it's a dangerous function. It's a dangerous function, and it will show deprecated. The function is deprecated, okay, and it's a dangerous function. So why? Because getS has a chance to overflow the buffer. So why I'm saying that is because getS does not specify any maximum capacity for the array input. Say I have a string input which I can take till 20 characters, but say the person has entered like hundreds of characters as the input. So there is a chance that it will overflow the buffer, the input stream buffer. So that is why it will always say that getS is a dangerous function. Okay. Instead of that, what we can use is fgetS. So fgetS has a format of str2 comma, so here we put the capacity, which is 20 here. Okay, so 20 is the capacity, so it can take a maximum of 20 characters. It will take only up till 20 characters. Even if you enter more, it will not take that. It will only take up till 20 characters. So fgetS is a safer function and a safer alternative to getS. But getS can be used for taking sentences as input. Okay, it is a dangerous function, but it can be used for taking the sentences as input. But it's preferable to use fgetS and not getS. Is that clear?
Sir, we have already declared str2 of length 20. Then why should we go with f?
Because here getS actually it does not it can take any number of characters as input. So there is no buffer limit that has been set internally. So internally the getS is not restricted in the buffer limit that it can take for any string. So there is no limit of characters that it can take as input. Okay, so it will try to take, like if you enter hundreds and hundreds of characters, and it will try to allocate space for that, and it is possible that it will overflow the buffer, that is the input buffer. Okay, even if your capacity is 20, it will try to allocate forcibly, and it's also possible that if you write enough characters, you might overflow the input buffer itself. So there is a maximum limit of input that you can give in any computer. Okay, like if you write hundreds and hundreds of characters, at some point you will the computer cannot handle the input anymore that you are giving. Okay, so and that is a problem with getS, but that is not a problem with fgetS. fgetS will terminate whatever input you, even if you type more than like hundreds and hundreds of characters, it doesn't matter, it will terminate at 20 itself. It will take only the first 20 characters as the input, no matter what you write after that. Okay, so there is no chance of a buffer overflow in fgetS. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's look at the last question for today. So we have a string which is saving the word assignment, and then we have a character variable t and two integer variable I and j. So we are running a for loop. For, you can see I equals 0 comma j equals strlen. So length, this returns the length of the string. Okay, so strlen is also a function, a library function which is defined in string.h. So it returns the length of the string, of course without the null character. It returns the length of the string without the null character, and then your condition is I less than j, and I, it is incrementing by I plus plus. Now inside the loop you are doing a few operations, and then you are printing p. So what will be the output here?
No output.
No output.
Okay, why is that?
The ninth character is encountered as well.
Right. So let us do a few steps of this, and then we can conclude that. Okay. So initially I equals 0 and j equals strlen of p, that is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? 10 characters, right? Is that right? 4, 6, 10, yeah. So 10 characters initially. Okay, and this is the first iteration. So in the first iteration, before the first iteration, I equals 0, j equals 10. So I is less than j, true. So what do we do? T equals p of I. p of 0, that means you have what, you have a, right? And p of I equals, that means p of 0 equals p of j minus I, which is 10 minus 0, that is p of 10, right? And what is p of 10? So this is, if you remember, a s s I g n m e n t slash 0, 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So index, what is that index 10? The null character. So basically now p of 0, so this 2 you are changing, so null character is coming to the start, and p of j minus I equals t, so p of 10 equals t, which is a. So null character is coming to the first, and then the rest is like this, the a. Okay, so this is how it becomes, right? Now in the, what happens in the next iteration, in the second iteration? The second iteration, t equals s, right? I plus plus. So t equals p of 1, p of 1 is s, and it is interchanging with t. It will interchange with t. So t 10 minus 1, 9. So it will interchange with t. So it will be 0 t s I g n m e n s a. Okay. So in the next one, similarly, this s and this n will change. In the next one, I and e will change, g and m will change, and then n. And that is where this will stop, because now your I will, okay, there is no j minus minus, okay, right. So then it will again interchange among itself, it will start interchanging again itself, but it will never go to the last. So because I is less than j, it will never go to the last iteration, where it will never go to the condition where I becomes j. That means I will never be 10. If I is not 10, then this null character and a will never interchange again. So if you do this for more and more, like if you do all the iterations, you will see that first it is interchanging, all the characters are interchanging, and then again interchanging with itself, but only the null character and the a will not interchange again. The other characters will all interchange with each other again, okay, with their respective counterparts. They will again interchange, but the null character and the a character will not interchange, because I is less than j, so I will never become 10. Okay, so in that case, the first character will be a null character, the first character itself. So when we print p, the first character itself will be a null character, and like I said, the null character, when it encounters, when the printf encounters the null character, it will stop printing. So the first character itself being a null character, it will just stop printing there itself, so there will be no output. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, so that is all I had for this particular session. Yeah, if there are any specific doubts regarding the class, then you can ask them now.
Sir, what is string buffer?
String buffer?
Yes.
Okay, string, okay, buffer. So when I said buffer earlier, so are you referring to the, like when I was referring to the buffer as in the input buffer and so on? So basically, so string, so you can enter a certain number of characters in the string. Okay, so here I'll just explain buffer with respect to this particular question. So here, so there is, for the input there is a certain number of characters, maximum capacity that you can enter. Okay, if you define a string, there is a maximum limit to how many characters you can store in this string. Okay, apart from the capacity, there is a maximum limit. But now what happens when you use this getS function, you can enter as many characters as possible and it will try to save all of them. So what happens in that case is that because your input, the size of your input is limited by the computer itself, and you are trying to enter the input higher than that, so that is what will cause this overflow of the buffer. So there is this buffer where your input temporarily gets stored in that buffer and then it goes to the variable. Okay, so that buffer itself, if it is not able to handle the input, the size of the input that you are giving, so there will be a buffer overflow. Okay, and that is a possibility with the getS function. So that is why we prefer using fgetS over getS function. Is that bit clearer now? So buffer is basically a space which will store the value temporarily. Similarly, there is an output buffer also. So it stores the value temporarily before it goes to the to be printed. Similarly, there is an input buffer which takes the value from the user, stores it temporarily until it gets passed to the variable. Okay. Yeah. All right then. So if there are no further doubts, then I will close the session here. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll meet again next week, Tuesday, 6 to 8 p.m. for discussing questions related to week 8. Yeah, and thanks for joining.